my name is Kaylee, and today we're going to talk about one of the most important rights as a citizen of the United States, the right to vote. In the United States, most citizens over the age of 18 have the right to vote in elections. Voting is not just a right, it's also a responsibility. So what is voting? Voting is when a group of people decide on something by saying what they want. Once everyone has said what they wanted, the answers are counted, and typically the majority, or whatever idea has the most votes, wins. You have small votes all the time. When your family decides on a restaurant for dinner, or your friends decide which game to play, we typically decide to do the thing that most people want to do. In the United States, we vote in elections. An election is the process of voting to choose someone to be the political leader or the representative of the people in a government. Remember, the U.S. is a representative democracy, so we typically vote for people who share our beliefs. The representatives will then vote on laws and make decisions on issues for the rest of the citizens. Voting in elections is the main way citizens have a say in how the country is governed or ruled. To win an election, politicians have to persuade people to vote for them. Politicians tend to belong to a political party. In the United States, we have a two-party system, which means we have two main political parties, the Democrats and the Republicans. Democrats and Republicans usually have very different ideas on how problems should be solved by the government. Each political party has a set of policies or beliefs that help them make their decisions. Politicians tend to belong to either the Democrat or the Republican Party. Each political party will prepare a list of policies that the politician promises to carry out if elected by the voters. This list of promises is called a politician's platform. Then, the politicians will give speeches about their platform. They have debates with other politicians, and they run advertisements to convince voters to vote for them. This is called campaigning. Politicians who are running for office can campaign for a long time, sometimes even years before the actual voting takes place. Before a person can vote, they need to register to vote. People register to vote by filling out a form with their name, address, and other personal information. Registering to vote ensures that people vote in the right place. Registering to vote in the right town or city is important. It's important because most elections, you vote for politicians who work for the entire country, just your state, and even just your town. Also, it's important to know when your town's local elections are being held. This is how you vote for your mayor and how local taxes will be spent. There are some laws about voting that are true everywhere in the country. A voter must be a U.S. citizen and at least 18 years old on the election date. It doesn't cost anything to register to vote, and voting is voluntary. This means you can't be forced to vote, and it's illegal to force someone not to vote. And each person can only vote once per election. But some voting laws vary by state. In most states, convicted felons do not have the right to vote. That means people who have committed crimes and are in prison cannot vote. And in some states, people who have even been released from prison are still not allowed to vote. Elections happen at different times during the year, but when it is an election day, most people go to a polling place to vote. A polling place is usually a public building like a school or a library. Voters can only vote at polling places within their precinct or their hometown. The voters show up to the polling place, show identification to the poll worker, and are then given the materials to vote, like a ballot. A ballot is a piece of paper that has all of the candidates the voters can choose from. On the ballot, you will find the politicians that are running for office. The type of office they are running for will depend on what type of election is going on. Elections can range from local politics like mayor and town council, or at the state level like governor and the senators and representatives, all the way up to the national level like voting for the president. Even though the United States is a representative democracy, there are ballot measures that citizens vote on. A ballot measure is a law, issue, or question on a ballot for the voter to decide on. Typically, these have to do with things like taxes. For example, some states have voted on a ballot measure to tax gasoline for cars at a higher rate. The states use this tax money to provide public transportation, fix roads, and provide other public services. These days, most people fill out their ballot by touching a computer screen or writing on a piece of paper that can be read by a computer. People can also vote by mail. This is called an absentee ballot. Voters use absentee ballots if they're not able to go to their polling place on election day. This is useful for people who have jobs or will be away from their hometown on election day. Once the election deadline is passed, voters can no longer vote in the election. Poll workers and election officials then count all of the votes. Usually, they get help counting from computers too. Once all the ballots have been counted, the candidate with the most votes is declared the winner. Now you know the gist of how elections and voting in elections work in the United States. Practice what you've learned by doing the online games and quizzes, have fun, and remember to always be clever.
Hey!